This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. I'm a big fan of shave soap. I've been using different brands for years, and I recently gave Sterling's shave soaps a try, and I've been very happy with the results. Sterling's shave soaps give you a great lather and a frictionless feel that allows the razor to glide right over the skin for a super close shave. No skin irritation and a clean, refreshing feel with no soapy residue after. I can tell you without a doubt, it's simply the best shave I've ever had. And my wife has noticed too. And here's the thing. With the ability to purchase 1-ounce sample pucks, you can try out different scents to find the right one for you. Give Sterling Soap a try today. Visit sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. And be sure to check out the latest addition to the Sports History Network roster, the GP Soccer Podcasts. Find it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's April 3rd, and on this day in 1994, it was an unreal finish in the Women's NCAA National Championship game. This game featured Louisiana Tech, a program that already had 2 national championships by this point, along with 8 Final Four appearances, and the North Carolina Tar Heels, who were playing in their first championship game, and in fact had never advanced past the Sweet 16 prior to this season. Under Coach Sylvia Hatchell, the mindset of the players had been changed, and the Heels had gotten progressively better since she had taken over the program in 1986. This was a tight game throughout, and it really boiled down to what happened in the final 30 seconds. With the score tied at 57, the Lady Texters had the ball out of a timeout.
2 defenders come to Thomas. She lets it fly and hits.
After the go-ahead basket, Hatchell elected to not call a timeout and let her team play for the tie and overtime.
Tanya Sampson.
They waited too long.
Jump ball with .7 left.
Sylvia Hatchell calling timeout. I thought they should have brought it up quickly to call a timeout.
0.7 of a second left on the clock, which is enough for a catch and shoot, but it better be quick. Hatchell worked up a play to inbound the ball to Sylvia Crawley for a shot close to the basket. But when they came out of the timeout, it was obvious that La Tech was defending Crawley, and the Heels needed to go to a plan B, and so they called another timeout. Soon-to-be hero Charlotte Smith talked about coming out of that second timeout.
I was nervous. I literally forgot the play. Fortunately, Sylvia Crawley, in that moment said, we're running 30s or 40s, whatever the play was, and we're setting a diagonal screen for you. Everybody assumed that we were going for the 2-point play. They assumed it was going to Tanya Sampson because she was the go-to player on our team. I find myself all by myself behind the 3-point line, and all I can remember is just thinking, dear God, please let this shot go in.
Taking the defense off the ball.
Here's the shot, Charlotte Smith.
Tears of joy. Tears of relief that the shot went in, and just a sense of gratification knowing that, wow, it took 3 years to go from the worst to the first.
On this day in 1989, it was the culmination of a surprising run to the national championship for the Michigan Wolverines. Now, what makes this a bit of a surprise is not what happened on this night specifically, nor is it that Michigan didn't deserve to be in this spot. The Wolverines were a solid 24-7 coming into the tournament and were a 3 seed, and they had talent with Glenn Rice, Rumeal Robinson, Loy Vaught. No, what made this run unique was that the day before the team was heading to Atlanta for their first-round game with Xavier, word leaked out that head coach Bill Frieder would be leaving Michigan once the season ended to take the head coaching job at Arizona State. When confronted, Frieder confirmed the rumor, and Michigan Athletics Director Bo Schembechler, who was also still the football coach at this point, fired Frieder with the quote, "A Michigan man will coach Michigan." Assistant coach Steve Fisher was inserted as the interim head man with the daunting task of taking over the team heading into the postseason. Interesting side note, Schembechler ended up leaving a few months later to take a position with the Detroit Tigers. Frieder said if he had known that he was not going to be given the opportunity to coach his team in the tournament, he would have never talked with Arizona State. Side note number 2, Frieder had actually been involved in controversy the previous year with rumors swirling that he was going to go to Texas. When he stayed at Michigan, his reputation was stained a good bit, and that may have had an impact on Schembechler's cutting ties with Frieder so quickly prior to the '89 tournament. But now, with Fisher in charge, the Wolverines proceeded to work their way through the tournament, a 5-point win against the Musketeers, a 9-point win against South Alabama, then a 5-point win over the 5th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels, followed by a 37-point thrashing of Virginia to get to the Final Four. In the semifinal, Michigan had to get by Big Ten rival and 3rd-ranked Illinois, a team they had lost to in both meetings in the regular season. But you know what they say, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a year, and that adage proved correct with Michigan winning by 2 to advance to the championship game on this night against Seton Hall. Glenn Rice's hot shooting in the first half, especially from outside the arc, propelled the Wolverines to a 5-point lead at the half.
Like he normally does, he's kind of walking it.
Rice bangs it in, and that was a 2. That's 10 points for the 2-time Big Ten scoring champion. Here's Rice responding with a 3, and he has 13.
Brent, he doesn't even tickle the net when he hit it. Those shots from the outside are right on the money.
The Wolverines were able to build the lead to 12 in the second half before the Pirates got back in the groove. Seton Hall had a guy named John Morton. He was the team's leading scorer that season with 17 points a game, and he ignited the comeback in the second half.
Defense, Ramos off with it, and Morton coming back in the middle now. Morton will try to go all the way for the layup, and he does, and the Hall back in the middle of it.
Morton looks quick.
Morton through the lane, hits the field goal.
And then with 25 seconds left in regulation, Morton hit a huge shot.
And Morton with the hot hand, he'll jack up the 3, and close it! 24 seconds, time for Michigan.
Michigan got a good look at a game winner, but Glenn Rice's shot missed and the game went to overtime. It was the first time in 26 years that the national title game went to overtime. With time winding down on the clock, Morton missed a 12-footer, and Michigan rebounded. They got the ball in the hands of Rumeal Robinson, who drove the length of the court, but his path to the basket was blocked, and he dished it to the wing to Mark Hughes, who had scored just 2 points that night. But the whistle blew, and a foul was called on Seton Hall's Gerald Green with 3 seconds on the clock, sending Robinson, a 64% free throw shooter that season and a 57% free throw shooter during the tournament, to the line for a 1-and-1. He calmly sank both to give the Wolverines a 1-point lead. Seton Hall had a shot to win at the buzzer, but the 3-point shot was off, and the Wolverines won the championship 80-79. It was their first and still their only national title in basketball. Soon after, the interim tag was removed from Fisher's title. He would take Michigan back to the Final Four twice more, those with the Fab Five, but would come up short both of those times. He coached at Michigan until he was fired in 1997. On this day in 1933, it was the second longest NHL game in history, scoreless through 5 overtimes. Let me just repeat that. Scoreless through 5 overtimes. Finally, Toronto's diminutive Ken Doherty snuck a shot past Boston goalie Tiny Thompson to light the lamp and win it. Now, this was the decisive game in the semifinals, so the Wind vaulted the Leafs into the Stanley Cup Finals against the New York Rangers. This game lasted 164 minutes and 46 seconds. It is second only to the 1936 game between Detroit and Montreal that went 176 minutes, 3 seconds before a winner could be determined. And on this day in 2007, the world said goodbye to football coaching legend Eddie Robinson, who died on this day. Robinson spent 55 seasons as the head football coach at Grambling State University. He was the first coach to ever win 400 games, finishing with 408 before retiring. He now stands third on the all-time list of winningest coaches, behind John Gallardi, who coached 64 years, with most of those years spent at St. John's in Minnesota, and Penn State's Joe Paterno. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. In September 1959, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev came to the United States on a state visit. Khrushchev was, in a word, irritable. While he had confrontations with several people while here, the angriest he got was when he was told he would not be allowed to visit Disneyland because of the crowds, and it would not be safe. He unleashed his fury at not only his own security detail, but the U.S. for not being able to protect him while visiting Mickey and Goofy. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.